Adventures in Imperfect Living.
Hey, greetings, folks. I'm Greg Willits from RosaryArmy.com.
And I'm Jennifer Willits, his wife.
You sound like you're about to start laughing about something.
Nope.
What is it?
I
Are you still thinking about what you said to me just before I hit record?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I knew we were going to be recording a show and that video would likely be involved. So the only thing I did to really prepare for that was to wear this necklace that you really can't even see because I didn't think that the microphone is going to be placed right in front of that. And so there is no video advantage of said decision to wear a necklace this morning.
I thought you
But
said
that's okay.
I thought you were going to say that the only thing that you did to prepare was you woke up.
Well, that too, and I cleaned the kitchen. Because the kitchen is
You
like
cleaned
a
the kitchen
thing.
this morning?
I did a whole bunch last night so that when I woke up this morning, there wouldn't be a pile of dishes drying over the course of the night. Because we do this. We think, well, that dish needs to air dry, so give it at least 6 hours before we put it away. I'm like, no. I say no, good sir. I'm going to grab that towel. I'm going to dry it myself. I'm going to put it away so it'll be gone. So this morning, the only thing left to do was empty the dishwasher and stuff like that.
Well, thank you for doing
Clean
that.
the stove.
I went out. I think
It's okay.
this might have been the first time of the year that I went out and sat on the front porch and did some show prep. But before we
That's
started
where
recording.
you were.
Yeah.
I didn't know where you were. That's why Molly was just sort of sitting there near
of the
the
door?
front door.
Because you know I was outside.
And so I thought you were in the back porch. I always go to the back porch first to look for you. And if I don't see you, then I'm like, well, I don't know where he is.
Well, this
give
time of
up.
the year, it's still a little cool on the back porch, and I get, just because I'm bald, I get cold very easily. But on the front, I actually had to put a hat on because the sun was so bright this morning. And, even right now as we're recording, it's only 56 degrees. But I was starting to burn up. I'm wearing a long-sleeve shirt, and just the sun hits this spot so hard. But I had to wear a hat because I couldn't look at my computer when I was out there. So anyway, I did some thinking this morning and some praying, and there's some topics that you and I have been dancing around a little bit over the last several months of things that we wanted to come up to the show, and I kind of realized they all tie together, and it's something that I think a lot of people will benefit from because we're living in a very distracted world. We're living in a very separated world. We're having a lot of conflicting thoughts and feelings, and there's a lot of division politically and in religion and in faith, and people are fighting on all sides. And how do we bring all these things together? And today we're going to solve it for you. Right here.
Oh, my goodness.
On Adventures in Imperfect Living. I have to say, though, I just want to point out that as we are recording this, today is our son Tommy's birthday. And it's kind of a monumental thing because, and this is the way my brain works, I'm always like, well, X amount of years ago today, this happened. And, and like last night even, I said, oh, we should be watching the Jennifer Garner movie 13 going on 30 because that's what we watched at the theater the night before he was born. So you didn't put that together when I said that?
No, because I had my movies flipped. For Ben, it was Panic Room with Jodie Foster.
Right, yes.
And Tommy was 13 going on 30 with Jennifer Garner and Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo was the male lead in that film. And I had my movies confused. But yeah, you're right. We have a thing. Apparently, if I'm like really close to giving birth, we go to a movie because that's
we did for those two.
Good.
I don't remember doing that for Lily. Lily, we went to a Popple concert.
That's right. So we do kind of skew towards entertainment.
Walter, he was planned, so we should have done something.
Yeah.
So he was the only one who was that delivery was induced. I just remember I had Burger King that night.
Yeah, and since Sam was the first
last time I had Burger King, by the way.
Yeah, well that's good that you haven't gone back. Anyway, so last night was a lot of memory thoughts.
So, but the reason why I bring it up is because it is kind of a monumental thing for our family in that we have 5 children here on earth and 5 in heaven. Of the 5 here on earth, we now only have 1 teenager.
Oh, that's right.
We have 4 children in their 20s now because Tommy turned 20 today, and so that's really weird to me that we have four of our 5 children are in their 20s.
Okay,
pretty strange.
And the last time we did a show, I was talking about this baby that I was going to get to hold, or I was hoping I was going to get to hold at school, because my coworker and lead Latin teacher, she brings her newborn to the Latin classroom, and the baby's there all day, because this is a really cool place. When you work for a small private Catholic school, only a few days a week, you can bring your newborn baby to class, and there's no shortage of arms to hold said baby. And his name is Linus, and he's super cute, and I get to hold him and feed him and just practice like grandma skills. It's
And you're
pretty
taunting
awesome.
me, man. You keep sending me these pictures of you holding these little infants, and you look grandmotherly in these
Yeah.
pictures.
Oh, Lily was watching me the other day, because I got to hold the baby during her Latin class. And I'm just kind of standing there, rocking him and bouncing him. And he's like wide awake, which is kind of new for him to be awake at that time of the day. Normally he's just asleep through it. But now he's, getting a little older, and he's going to be awake more. So there's going to be lots of fun challenges there. And so she was just looking at me and smiling, just smiling. And I'm like, I know what you're probably thinking.
Oh, yeah.
She sees me as grandmother, but we're like nowhere near that. I mean, who knows what the Lord may have in store for us, and when that first grandchild will come.
And we don't want to be
Lord willing.
we don't want to be those parents that are like, "Hey, where's our grandchildren? Where's our grandchildren?"
Right, yeah.
But
no.
at the same time,
It would be pretty great.
yeah, and it's really weird, because there's a few things that I see, both online from friends and then just in real life from friends, of people our age. One of two things are happening. Some are already experiencing early retirement, which just boggles my mind. And so, like, I'm seeing people in my peer group who are like, "Well, I'm done working." I'm like, how?
You're my age.
How are you done working? And then I start saying I made all
no.
sorts of wrong life decisions. But then the other thing, and we saw this just the other day, old time podcasters. This is a couple that we met
Oh,
18, 19 years ago at the very
Yeah.
first podcast and portable media expo out in California, and then we became digital friends with them. Lynn and Nora Peralta, who used to host a show.
Jawbone Radio.
Jawbone. Thank you, Jawbone Radio. I almost said Griddle Cakes Radio, but that was Ron Plouffe. Jawbone Radio was their show. Lynn and I have stayed friends online. Lynn is an artist that I greatly appreciate. He does the kind of art that I would like to be able to do in terms of cartooning and that kind of thing. He's really great. His son is an amazing painter. They have a broad family. Nora helped start up a Catholic, I believe it's a hybrid homeschool as well. It's a hybrid school of some sort. And she's been doing that for years. Well, they just became grandparents the other day. So I saw that picture online. I'm like, don't be jealous. I'm like, but they're like two of my friends from South Carolina. They're both grandparents. I'm like, how are y'all grandparents? And
Well,
so
we're close.
I know
we're
we are. I
close.
know we are. And God, in his infinite mercy knows the best time for these things. So he proved that with us. And so I never want our children or our daughters-in-law to ever feel like they have a sense of pressure because of us. It's like we'll take grandkids when we get them. So anyway, sooner the better, though. And I'm glad you're getting to hold the baby. But
it's
I am
super fun.
I'm super jealous. All right, so let's dive into this. So I want to talk about a difficult term that has floated around for a few years now that is worth talking about, and it ties into, I think, a problem that a lot of people are facing in their family. So maybe in your family, you have a son or a daughter or a spouse or someone close to you who has fallen away from the church. You've heard that phrase. Well, it's like, I'm not going to be religious. I'm going to be spiritual. So they're trying to hold on to something without actually grasping onto anything, right? So they're claiming I'll be spiritual but not religious, and it's a little bit of a handicap. So that's one example. You might have someone who says, well, I'm a good person, and so because I'm a good person, I know that when I die, I'll go to heaven simply because I'm good. Without ever embracing a cross, without ever seeing the need for the cross and the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made. And so you see these kinds of things that go into it. And then they might say, well, I have a relationship with God, but their relationship with God is when they're in a difficult time, that's when they'll ask God for help, as if he is a genie in a bottle. And he's just kind of sitting around hanging out on the clouds waiting for you to show up and say, hey, I need some help. Because great, I'm happy to help you. I'm here like a customer service person, right? More than your actual creator and the person who loves you. Okay, so I want to talk about that phenomenon and the terminology that goes into it, but I also want to pair it with something that you and I have talked about, which is going smaller, going more interior, going more quiet, and even something that we're seeing happening in stores near us. It seems as though even the secular world, without identifying it clearly, they see a longing for something deeper. The definitions that I just gave a moment ago, those are all very superficial things. Like the world has trained us to become more superficial in our thinking. And so the term, and the first time I heard this term was while we were in Colorado. Kevin Knight from New Advent, he and I got the opportunity to work together for a while, and I consider him a good friend. I remember him using this phrase, and the first time he used it, I was like, yeah. Like I knew what he was saying. And the phrase is moralistic therapeutic deism. It's a very, very simple thing to come flowing out of Kevin's mouth because he's an infinitely smarter guy than me. But I had to stop and go, what does that mean? And I'm trying to understand moralistic therapeutic deism, and all the words kind of get, you get the istic and putic and isms. It's like what trying to understand,
advanced.
right? Trying to understand the roots of these things, right? So it would have been helpful to have a Latin scholar jump in there and go, well, the istics and the putics and the
root
isms
word
and
is-
so it took me a while to understand and kind of parse through the meanings of these words, but let's talk about what it is. So moralistic therapeutic deism is basically taking Christianity and you reduce it down to nothing more than moralism. Okay?
Okay.
So in a way, even though you're claiming deism, that there is a God, actual faith is being removed from the equation. So let's break it down. Ready?
Yeah. Oh,
let's
great.
break it down further. All right? I'm going to sing to you now the song about moralistic therapeutic deism, and you're never going to forget. Moralistic therapy. No, the first word. All right, so let's take moralistic, right? That's for moralism, right? What is moralism? It's
Sense of good and bad.
yeah.
and
Well,
evil and good.
let's focus on the. They don't think
what's
about
right and wrong.
Well, wait a minute. They don't think about necessarily people who say that they're moralistic. It typically goes around about rules for respectability, right? What are the goods that they're doing? I fight for the good of the common man. I'm looking out for the little guy. They're never saying, they rarely say, I look out for the little guy and I ignore the big guy. They don't say what the bad part of it is. The focus is on things that are basically the rules for respectability.
Okay.
Right? So we'll jump into moralistic a little bit more deeper here in a second.
Okay.
Then you have therapy, what is therapy?
Therapeutic.
Therapy, right? It's creating some sort of a practical plan for your life, right? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's very therapeutic.
It's designed to make you feel better, designed for some kind of an
to improve your life, right?
Yeah.
Stop addictions, fix your kids, have a better marriage. Those are all therapeutic things, right?
Right.
And then lastly, you have this idea of deism, which is basic belief that there is a God. God does exist, and he created all things, but he's this really
Abstract, untouchable idea.
Yeah. Very ambiguous, right? He's this ambiguous being. He's just sort of over there on the other side of the clouds or in some other place, and he doesn't really mess with the world unless the world goes, we need you, right? And so he's this convenience that's there. All right, so again, let's look at some ways that how are we seeing this in the world? Where do we see this manifest now, and why is it a problem, right? Why is it a problem to think about moral things, moralistic, and therapeutic, being better, and well, you believe in God. Well, why is it bad to be kind of bringing all those things down to their lowest common denominators? And the way that we see it, and we see it in a lot of ways. There's many ways, and it's kind of nefarious in its nature that's there because it's rotting away true good in people. And it's not always obvious that it's doing it. It's like a slow rot. It's a slow leak that you don't know is happening. It's sort of like the hum that we hear in our refrigerator for the last couple months. there is probably a good indication that there's a fan or a circuit or something that's about to blow. It may seem relatively harmless right now, but we're standing to possibly lose, a lot of food and, the expense of the fixing all, so it's a slow and nefarious little thing. And those are normally the worst ones. Better example. Oh my gosh, this literally just happened. Happened on Friday or Thursday. I'm here at the house, and all of a sudden, and thank goodness I wasn't here in the studio at the time, because I think I would have lost my mind if I was. And then all of a sudden, there was this massive crash sound. Like, I thought there was a car accident outside. It was so loud. The whole house shook. And I came out, and I'm looking, and I see Marty, one of our cats, sitting in a chair, and he's looking like, what just happened? And I came upstairs, and I saw Molly, our other cat, in Lily's room, and she's hiding underneath the bed. Something freaked her out. I'm like, oh no, what just happened? And I came into the studio, and there's a closet in the studio, and I looked in the closet, and I have a shelf in there that was attached with drywall anchors to the wall, and it had finally collapsed. The drywall anchors gave out. One of the screws had been slowly bending. I hung that shelf about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, and I've had the same things on there. I did not know that the screw was slowly bending on one of the anchor points until it finally collapsed, and it came crashing down in the closet. Equipment and supplies and things all over the place. Thank goodness nothing of great value was lost.
Mm-hmm.
That was a slow and nefarious breaking away to now I have these massive holes in the wall that I have to fix. I got to figure out where am I going to put all this stuff now. And it was a slow rot, right? That created a lot of damage. And that's what this moralistic therapeutic deism is doing to people, because it's slowly doing away with their true moral side of things, their true focus on God and as the one deity, right? And the ways that God truly helps us. A therapeutic self-help isn't what we need. So, I was reading a few different articles, and kind of a common thing I was seeing in an analysis of moralistic therapeutic deism was the most obvious symptom that we see is that moralism side, right? So we see this most of all in a lot of the activist ideologies in society. So all the different activisms, right? So we're coming up on June. What has June become? It should be a month focused on the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Instead, is a month focused on the deadly sin of pride. This ecological activism, right? The focus on the ecology is more important than the planet, or more important than the people. It's more important than God. The planet, the ecology. It's the most important thing. What about sexual identity? A person's sexual identity. It's the most important thing. It's in every news story. It's on every magazine cover. You can't. You're going to be a terrible person if you, right? Moralistic. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to ask someone their pronouns. It's moralistic to do. It's like this good, right? This political activism. Well, you have to be on the side of the people. You have to be on this woke activism in general. These are all forms of moralism.
Okay.
And we see it. I mean, just constant propaganda. And I'd say in our family, the thing that bothers us the most is seeing it in books and TV and movies. I mean, I just started to read a book recently, and I thought the first chapter was phenomenal. It's a book I'm like, okay, I'll try that. It was available in the library. I downloaded it onto my Kindle. It was called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And it was one of the best first chapters I've read in a modern day book in a long time. I'm like, wow, I literally almost sent a text immediately to like the group chat that we have with you and the Barons. Mm-hmm. I almost said, this is solid. But I said, wait a minute. Let me keep reading.
Chapter 2.
And all of those, like in that book, it had the ecological activism, the sexual identity activism, the political activism, the woke I mean, all of those things were in this one book. And it's so frustrating because once you become aware of this moralistic therapeutic deism, you start seeing it everywhere. So you're welcome. You're now going to see it everywhere.
How is that deism, though?
Well, we'll get to that. Okay. I'm focusing just on the moralistic part.
Gotcha.
You have to break down. It's a 3-part. That's a great question, because it's confusing because you think that it's 3 parts in one. right?
Sounds very Trinitarian.
Well, I would call it the
the
anti-Trinity.
anti-Trinity.
Right?
Okay.
Just like a little bit of when we get to the deism part, you'll see that the way that is being put into place, it's actually a very anti-Christ focus.
Okay.
Right? So, but we're seeing it. I gave that book as the example, but you see it in a lot of other more obvious ways. You see it in parades and the protests, and there's flags for everything. Right? People are putting out their flag. What's frustrating is you can see how sometimes it looks good and it sounds good. I want to be a good person, right? I want to be fair. I want to be compassionate. I want to be loving, right? Love is love, right? And so there's a lot. This is something I remember in Denver really struggling. I hated the fact that so many good words were appropriated. And marriage was the big one for me when we were in Denver, because one of the aspects of the office that I ran for the Archdiocese was focused on family life. And so we just started to say, we're not going to talk about marriage. We're going to talk about holy matrimony, right? Because the word marriage is being appropriated, just like gay was appropriated. Just like, if they could take a word and change the definition, then they can change the society's view on the original purpose of that, right? And so that's a moralistic way of going about things. But it's a counterfeit religion. It's not real. It's not good. And it's invaded Christian churches, right? And it's in so many different places. You see it in your own church, right? You'll see. I always use felt banners as the default thing, but it's more than that. You see the different marches and while there's nothing bad with food drives and that kind of thing, but there are people who will make that food drive be the most important thing of the religion rather than Jesus Christ and the Eucharist, right? So it's easy.
Helping to serve the needs of the poor
will become
very good thing to do.
Very good thing, but it will become the primary thing for people who
Right.
fall into this. Doing good works, but only doing good works for in and of themselves.
Right. Because I think we can all agree that people do like a cause to get behind. There is something that
Sure.
we're a little hardwired for that. And there are certain age groups that are more susceptible to that. And I'm going to young people, like young adolescents between 18 and 25. There's something about that sweet spot of age where they love to rally behind a cause of a type, and they are filled with passion and energy to do so.
And I think every generation does that. I'm trying to remember what ours was. I don't think Generation X had a cause to rally behind.
No, we were just having too much fun, apparently, with music videos, and everything was new. Everything was great. And what? Passions of the flesh? No big deal. It feels good. Oh, gosh.
Well, so that is a form of moralistic therapeutic deism back then, too.
Yeah.
So I also see it, think about when you talk about therapeutic then, and I haven't seen the therapeutic ideas, the examples that I read in a lot of these articles in Catholic churches as much, but it is there. And it's sort of in these little programs that will get created that will be, a lot of times you'll see things about reinventing yourself or renewing yourself or rehabbing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Think about things like purpose-driven life. Anytime you hear that phrase, or being the best version of yourself, it's very therapeutic, right? How do you discover these things that are going to improve your life without it actually being a faith-based thing that's going to be improving your life? So it's very much in the prosperity gospel messages. That's very much a therapeutic message, right? That God wants you to be blessed, and He wants to fill you with blessings and all these guys. Well, the blessings of the world, that's the therapeutic type of blessings that they're most time talking about. But if you see seminars, and we're in the South, so we'll see these on the marquees outside of non-denominational churches, you'll see different study courses or whatever or the pastor is going to be preaching on something for 4 weeks in a row. Things like how to heal your failing marriage, or parenting troublesome teams, or the kinds of things I was saying at the beginning, right? So that's a lot of the therapeutic. But then let's talk about lastly the deism, and then we're going to kind of bring all these things together. When you look at deism, I like Father Dwight Longnecker. He is a priest in South Carolina. He had just this great 3-word definition of deism. Okay, deism is atheism without guts, right? What that means is, think about it.
Okay.
An atheist is like, I don't believe in God.
Yeah, they have a strong position and they own it.
Yeah, they're like, God doesn't exist.
Right.
A deist is like, I don't know. It's like this weak, that they're not willing to say God exists.
Or that he doesn't.
Or that he does exist, but he's this nice guy. And I think the deism is nefarious. And I've noticed this particularly in the last few years when someone that we know dies. And deism has squashed, I want to be careful how I say this, squashed even lukewarm believers' need and knowledge of the benefit of praying for the repose of the souls of the dead. And what deism has done is made everyone think everyone's going to heaven. Because he was a good person. He was moral. He was therapeutic. He did things to improve himself. And because God is out there on the other side of the clouds and he wants everyone to be happy, so this person that I cared about, who was good to me, is in heaven. And that's not how it works. And so that's not the main thing that I want to go here, but that's
It's just another example.
I've
of how it
noticed
plays
that
out. Yeah.
with the immediate canonization of everyone who dies. Everyone's like, well, he's in a better place now. Is he? Are you praying for that fact?
Right. And if you believe that he is already in heaven, then you won't be praying, for their soul because you think they've already arrived.
Yeah.
So why should I pray for someone who's already in heaven?
Listen, the other day I was doing lawn work, and I was actually praying for souls of people who have died. And I'm just kind of thinking about that. And all of a sudden I went, I can't believe I'm about to do this. It hit me like a ton of bricks as I was out. I'm out there just, how it is when you're just doing some sort of task and you're praying and you're just kind of, you're in this mode. And I went, I can't believe I'm at a point where this is something that is about to come into my brain and I'm about to address this to God. Dear God, if he's in purgatory, please forgive. And it sounds like I'm making a joke, but I literally was like, and it was hard for me to pray this. Please forgive O.J. Simpson. And it feels weird saying that. Mm-hmm. Everyone's immediately like, well, he's in hell. Well, is he? Shouldn't our desire be that everyone be in heaven? But then believe that because of our sinfulness and our humanity, that there's a good chance that we're not? And that if at the last moment O.J. was like, God, I'm sorry, and God had mercy on him and let him go to purgatory, which means if you go to purgatory, you're going to heaven eventually, but only after the remission of the sins has been brought forward through your what's the word I'm looking for? I'm struggling with an actual particular word. Basically, you're doing the penance for your sins in purgatory. Reparation. Thank you. Reparation. Okay. For that reparation is being fulfilled, and our prayers for those in purgatory help in that reparation, right? Our sacrifices, and so we as Christians, I talk about a moral thing to do would be to pray for the souls in purgatory and to do acts of reparation for them, and that's not being preached because when it comes back to this deism part, it's this wishy-washy thing that because if God exists, he doesn't do anything, so he may as well not exist.
Well, I think one...
and you're right, I have been using wishy-washy a lot again.
Stop using that word. Find a new synonym. One missing component from this moralistic therapeutic deism is what do they think about sin? Because it sounds like they don't regard sin at all as a real thing, which means there's no real consequences to their actions.
Right.
And it's because as a Catholic, we are so aware of sin. I mean, if you're paying attention in your Catholic faith, you should be very aware of the reality of sin and the reality of spiritual consequences to our actions. The stakes are incredibly high. So when death comes, that is a very intense, powerful moment of we don't know the destination of the soul because it is tied to the sin in the life that was lived. And in their camp, the moralistic theism, therapeutic deism camp, if everybody is just sort of like, well, he was good because I'm the judge. If I judge that person was good, then they're fine. They're really in a happier place, whatever that means. And that is erroneous.
Well, what you're describing is what Pope Benedict XVI preached about, it was one of the first main things he preached about, which was the dictatorship of another ism, relativism. And so I would say that those who fall into that camp of moralistic therapeutic deism as their daily operating way of life, that they are more prone to also adopt a moralistic a relativism, to fall under that dictatorship of relativism. And relativism says that basically there are multiple truths. My truth may not be the same as your truth, but both truths can somehow, even if they're contradictory, they can both exist simultaneously and both be true. And that's baloney. Right. That's like saying my coffee is coffee and it's not coffee at the same time.
Right.
And that,
well, and there's this idea of what's necessary for one person. Like, I don't have a problem if you go to church.
Right. And
but
so
I don't feel it necessary to go to church. So therefore, and I'm not mad at you, so you shouldn't be mad at me.
And that totally goes into what you were saying before, right, which is where in this moralistic therapeutic deism does right or wrong come into play? And as you said, sin, right? Mm-hmm. The only quote unquote sin is being against the moralistic principles currently being upheld in society today, which right now it would be considered a sin to go against the wokeism. It would be a sin to go against the sexual identity politics. It would be a sin to go against the ecological things. All these things that are relatively new inventions from the last couple decades, that somehow this groundswell wave from moralistic therapeutic deism that has overtaken the Christianity, right? And that's why all of this is worth talking about, because these are things
that are overtaken it, eclipsed it completely, or infecting it slowly, like slow rot.
That's a good parsing out of the words, right? Because no, it hasn't infected it completely, but it's infected it more like a cancer infects the body. Mm-hmm. The cancer has not yet taken over completely, but the cancer is killing.
Yeah, it's weakening.
I would say it's killing.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about
that's the goal.
Well, I mean,
right?
that a cancer is going to keep eating away unless the cancer is treated. And so this moralistic therapeutic deism is going to continue to eat away at our churches and our families and our societies until it's counteracted. And so, so those are the three main ideas. Right? I broke it down in that way. Just real quick, I want to there's sort of like 5 main tenets of this that'll make it even more clear for us. So we could summarize this moralistic therapeutic deism this way: that a God exists who created and orders the world, and he watches over human life on earth. He's not directly interacting, but he's sort of like, oh no, you're about to be in a car accident. I'll send my angel right now, and poof. And so you can go, I'm telling you, an angel saved me. So you could say those kinds of things, right? There's this God who's just kind of going around doing nice favors for people because he just does that kind of thing. What? Why are you smiling?
No.
Okay.
I just think that's kind of a funny image.
Yeah.
Like, as if we're the Netflix show for God. He's sitting there eating a giant heavenly bowl of popcorn, and Earth is the show that he's watching for his amusement.
Yeah, he's just kind of, he's made these playthings, right? Mm-hmm. That God wants people to be nice and good and fair to each other, as taught in the Bible and by most world religions, right? So just be good to each other.
Be good, yes.
Be good to each other.
Most people can agree.
Be nice. Be fair. What do we say at the end of our show? Be holy.
Yeah.
That is not a part of therapeutic deism, okay? That the central, and this is the third part, the central goal of life is to be happy and to feel good about oneself. I want to have a happy life. That's my goal in life, is to be happy. That's okay. God does not need to be particularly involved in one's life, except when God is needed to resolve a problem. And that's a more succinct way of saying
he's a problem solver.
Than the genie analogy I gave at the beginning. He's not really just waiting around for you to make a wish, but he's like, I don't have to be part of your life. I'm not asking that, but I'm here when you need me. Sort of like Buddy Christ, from that old Kevin Smith movie. I tell you what, that's a terrible movie, right? In terms of just the theology and the crudeness of it. But so this Buddy Christ image that Kevin Smith filmmaker came up with 25 years ago It's a statue of Jesus, and it looks a little bit like the Sacred Heart of Jesus, but he's like winking, and he's kind of giving you he's pointing the finger at you, like just going, not the middle finger, but like his index finger at you, like just like, I got you, buddy. That's pretty telling. I mean, that was a social commentary. That was, and think about it. That was Kevin Smith, who grew up Catholic. That was his experience of that was the kind of Jesus that was being put at him, and he wasn't buying it. So now he makes fun of it, which is incredibly sad, right? But you could see why he did it. I'm not justifying. I'm not.
And that was 25 years ago.
That was
so we
25
hope
years
and
ago.
pray that things have improved for him today.
Well, I don't know. I don't really pay attention to Kevin Smith these days. But that Buddy Christ image, I see that pop up on the internet quite often. People will use that as a meme. I mean, that's he's your buddy. He's your buddy Jesus, right? That he's just this friend. He's not your savior. He didn't die on. He died, but he didn't suffer, right? He's God. He can handle these things. He's your buddy. It's nefarious. So God doesn't necessarily want to need to be involved in your life, except needing to resolve a problem. And the last tenet is that good people go to heaven when they die, and that was the last one. That idea I feel like is one of the most nefarious of these tenets, right? So I have more that I want to talk about with that, but I feel like that's a pretty solid. Do you understand it better now that we've talked about it? And can you see how it's kind of infiltrated?
Well, I think
so many
that's
places.
another conversation. Let's talk about, it doesn't even have to be in this show. It could be a future episode. And I definitely would love to hear thoughts from our viewers / listeners to the podcast. Where have you seen this play out?
How can they notify us of their comments? What can they do, Jennifer?
Feedback at gregandjennifer.com.
Yep, and that they can record voicemail and send it to us. We actually got a voicemail yesterday via email. And
About the show?
No, about the show. We'll play it in a future show. But feedback at gregandjennifer.com. Just pull out your phone and record on your voice memo.
Yes. Like how it plays out in our experience of Catholicism today now becomes another interesting question to ask. Where are we seeing this weakening, this slow death occurring in our parishes, where there's this idea of a good being promoted that maybe is disordered inherently?
Yeah.
It's not really pointing to the good, the true, and the beautiful of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but it's pointing to something else that's also good, but not quite right. And so we see that playing out.
So, and it's even when we're trying to take our faith more seriously, I will say that it's easy for even those of us that are praying our rosaries every day, that we're striving for holiness, that we take Mass as the utmost commitment, and it's something that we desire to go to Mass, right? That this moralistic therapeutic deism still has impacted us. If you're in the world will constantly be affecting you, and it's our responsibility to kind of fight against it. One of the things that we've been talking about, and I hope that I can tie these two things together, it was something that came up a couple weeks ago. We found out that a store near us had closed, and a Barnes & Noble is going to be going into this location. And it's strange because for the last 20 plus years, you see a Barnes & Noble and it's a massive building, normally standalone. Sometimes it's connected to something, but normally it's
huge.
It's a large store. And when you go into Barnes & Noble, I mean, you just keep going back and back and back. And over the years, they've brought in, music and movies, and then they have Legos and puzzles, and there's, it's not just books anymore. And then
it's like the new media play in a way.
Yeah, media.
Do you remember that old story?
Yeah, and really it is. And it's not just about books. And, it used to be, I remember going in right after Sam was born, like 2 weeks after he was born. I took him up to Barnes & Noble and sat down in a chair and just read a book for a while. And I don't even know if I've seen a chair other than going into the cafe, and it always seemed weird to take one of their books and go over and have a cup of coffee. And I don't like drinking Starbucks, so I never have coffee. Anyway, my point is that this one store emptied, and then we found out that a Barnes & Noble was going to go into this new, smaller space. And it perplexed me so much. And I started doing a lot of research. I'm like, how is this possible? How is this going to be a new Barnes & Noble? And I found out that in the last couple of years, Barnes & Noble got a new CEO. He's from England. He was a bookseller over there. And Barnes & Noble's market share going down, 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 down because of Amazon. And you'd see the graph and you just see the slow downtick. The same thing was happening for these stores over in England, and this man was able to save it. And the reason why he was able to do it is because he started to focus on these smaller spaces, started to give local managers the ability to choose the selection of books that are in the local stores. And when I think of going into most Barnes & Nobles, and this has been the case, if I went into the Barnes & Noble closest to us, and then I got in the car and I drove another 20 minutes and I went to another Barnes & Noble, and I got in the car and drove 20 minutes further, went to another Barnes & Noble, my experience is probably going to be exactly the same in all three of those Barnes & Nobles, right down to the selection and the placement of the books. Now, why does this matter? Where is this going back to where these other things? What they're doing is they are basically realizing that what people are missing in today's internet saturated world is a real experience that's personal. And that moralistic therapeutic deism doesn't really leave that personal relationship with God. It doesn't really leave for you to truly be transformed. You might be changed or learn some new skills on a superficial level. So I want to talk about this a little bit. And again, I don't know how these two connect, but I feel like they do. That I'm really intrigued. I'm really excited by this bookstore to see it because they have it covered right now with the front windows. But I've seen videos online of other Barnes & Noble stores that have either gone through reinventions or have already had the redesign inside, or the new smaller stores that are opening up. And the idea that the local bookseller will be choosing the selection based upon what you buy. I think
or ask for,
or
perhaps,
ask for. And so it made me realize, do we have a weird evangelization opportunity here? Small, right? Think about what I said before, the slow rot of the moralistic therapeutic deism. Do we need to be, rather than having these huge evangelization efforts, do we need to be instead having a slow reinforcement happening? We need to slowly be building up and counteracting the rot by slowly building up in other ways, not expecting huge transformations that are overly evident right out of the gate, just like the slow rot you don't see right away until everything collapses. Can the opposite happen? Can we be countering this moralistic therapeutic
like a restoration
deism
of a type
through a slow restoration, right? Rather than an evangelization that is super evident and everywhere, and we're doing big galas and events, which aren't bad. I'm not saying stop doing those things. It's not a this or that. It's a both and. But I think about, for example, Lily uses Barnes and Noble as a research opportunity. So she goes to Barnes and Noble, see what's on the shelf, and then walks out and will go order it somewhere else. She'll go.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I can admit it.
And so there's like 2 books I want right now. I'm waiting until the store opens, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to try to buy them. And I have, every time I've gone into Barnes and Noble and they say, well, we can order it for you. I'm like, and I never say yes. I'm going to start doing that in this one local store. It's in our community. It's close to our house. There's no Catholic bookstore nearby. I'm going to ask for a Fulton Sheen book. I'm going to ask for a productivity book that I've been wanting. And I'm just going to kind of a mix, right? But over time, I'm going to start asking for more Catholic books, and I'm going to buy them from there. Now, I've long been a proponent. If there was a Catholic bookstore near me, I would be going to that Catholic bookstore and buying it. It takes us 45 minutes to get to the local Catholic bookstore. I could go online and buy as well. I understand the arguments across the board for, and I don't know where the best place is, but I really love the fact that, imagine in our area where there are a couple Catholic churches nearby, imagine if enough Catholics locally to us went into that bookstore and regularly bought Catholic books from this place. What's the bookseller going to do? Well, if they're following what Barnes & Noble's leadership is saying, then they will take that data and be putting in, they're going to say, well, we're selling more of these books, so let's put more of these books in. the space in the bookstore is going to be allocated to the places where the focus is. I think it's really an interesting experiment and I think it's a way of counteracting. I love the idea of people stumbling upon all these books because people are asking for and buying them. And I know it sounds like an idealistic idea, but I'm really intrigued by this. And I think it has some merit, because if you think about, and this is a moralistic idea, buying local, I'm a big proponent of it. If there's a local coffee house, I'm going to that local coffee house. I want to support a local business. I prefer always to support a local business. Now, here I am saying I'm going to support Barnes & Noble. Well, we don't have a local bookstore even, right, to be able to ask for it. But if now the CEO is seeing the benefit of servicing local communities by putting in books, not that some corporate institute has stuck into a bunch of boxes based off of an algorithm and shipped to all the stores arbitrarily in hopes that they'll sell, but instead they're trying to raise those numbers, and they are, by the way. This strategy is working. You could see the numbers are going up because people are tired of the impersonal interactions of Amazon, and they're desiring the personal interactions of actual physical connection. I just find it really fascinating. So think about now, here we are having this conversation about these bookstores. Imagine if just 100 of the people listening right now, if all 100 of us in our own local communities started going to our local Barnes & Nobles, and rather than Amazon, and started, looking for Catholic books that we wanted, maybe saw online, and we went to these places and we went ahead and went up to the counter and said, do you have this book? No, you can order it. Yeah, what would you order that for me? And then actually buy it from them. Just wait, just do that out. Build a relationship with the bookseller. I mean, I totally plan on figuring out who the manager is at this place.
Are you going to give them some Sophia Press catalogs?
No.
Here, order some of these titles and keep it on your shelf.
But it's slow, right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of like, you keep ordering these books. I've seen you here 3 times now. You keep, I want to be a good customer.
Yeah.
Right? And they even have like the Barnes & Noble card, and I never sign up for these membership things.
I have one.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm totally signing up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe can we share that so we both we just share the points?
As long as there's a number that you have to give it to them, and then they scan it. I don't know that it's tied to my phone number or anything, but I'll look into it.
Okay,
If we can share it, that'd be great.
Because
we can build it up.
Yeah, I'm totally going to do this. So I don't. Can you maybe? I'm going to ask you. Can you see the connection? Why I brought these two together, or is this just another one of those Greg just random? Synapses firing off.
I was thinking about that as I knew this topic was coming. What large bookstores have become, and again, we're not experts on this. Can we just I don't want people who maybe are intimately more involved in the industry of books, because it's a complicated industry in this country. There's something about what mainstream Barnes & Noble has become. It didn't start out this way, but it has certainly become. And it sort of represents this thing now where all ideologies are welcome. And it's like this huge rushing river of books of everything in it. And what this newer concept is, like this little offshoot stream that just now wants to, there might be a good.
It's watering the local area.
And just sort of there's a beauty to let's come down a little bit. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea, that everything is great. Maybe it isn't. Maybe we need to pivot and try to know who our people actually are, rather than who corporate is telling us people are.
Yeah.
And so there is a goodness, but it's still, we don't know which way this is going to go yet. I think it's too soon to see if it will bear fruit yet. Because if your community is filled with a lot of people who have opposing values,
Absolutely.
now that could also show up in this very small local store, because it's just going to reflect your community now, which may not be what you want. But there is hope for good. And I think there's a bigger reason why we like this, because there's an experience of going in a bookstore that is speaking to us on a deeper level that we actually like. There's something about being surrounded by all these words, there's something bigger than us here. I don't know what it is. I just know I like being here. And I like that I could find something that's going to just make me feel something again, or it's something that's going to make me feel affirmed or inspire me. And we find this in stories. And I'm trying not to be Nicole Kidman on the AMC. Movies are magic, whatever she says.
Because here they are.
But books are timeless. Some of these books are like thousands of years old, and so we are just drawn by stories. We love stories. And a bookstore sort of give us a place where we can touch and interact and make a choice about something. So that's kind of what we love. Now, I'll admit, right or wrong, I don't get that feeling when I go into a Catholic bookstore. When I go into a Catholic bookstore, it's like, well, there's going to be saint books. That's what's going to be there, that doesn't, while there's a time for that, there's a place for where I do want to be inspired by a saint, but suddenly it's a different shopping experience entirely. Now it's about a gift giving. That's really, at the end of the day, what pulls me into a Catholic bookstore is I need to buy a gift for a Catholic event, which is something else, And so I'm having a struggle of seeing what is a good Catholic arrangement of books in a secular bookstore like Barnes & Noble even look like.
Yeah.
That would make the book owner feel like I've made a good choice. These books are going to sell, because that's all he cares about is selling books. And so I don't know. I mean, I think there's good, but there's also some legitimate problems that exist that I don't know how this is going to pan out. Those are my initial thoughts.
No, I think they're all great thoughts. I think that they make a lot of sense. I think they're all valid. I don't want to make it sound like I'm being overly optimistic of this as well.
Oh, but you are. No, just kidding.
Well,
hopeful. You're hopeful.
I'm hopeful, but as you were talking, I mean, you did hit something that I've always loved bookstores. When I was a kid and we'd go to the mall, bookstore was going to be the first place I was going to. And part of it is the love of the discovery, right? You want to discover something that you didn't know existed before, and you never know what you sometimes know what you're going to walk out of in a bookstore, but oftentimes you walk out with something that you didn't know that you were going to walk out with. If we can go and actually have an impact on what's on the shelves, and I don't know how it's, again, I haven't seen it yet. It's supposed to open up on May 1st, and I'm super excited, and I plan on being there when it opens up. That I think
I can just see you at that. You're going to be smiling ear to ear, like, where's this guy? Where's the manager? I want to be your friend.
I'm going to take it slow.
Yeah.
That's the only way to just.
You're going to be like a Catholic spy going in undercover.
Yeah, there was
undercover.
Catholic undercover. Just go and just take the book covers.
Detective.
Take the book covers off of all of the popular New York Times bestsellers and just put those jacket flaps on a Fulton Sheen Life of Christ book. I'm going to buy this book. What the heck is this? Anyway, it didn't tie as well together as I hoped, but
no. They're two very good.
They're separate topics, but they're
both
very
important.
much taking up. Here's how they tie together. They're two completely separate topics that are both taking up equal amounts of real estate in my brain right now. I've been thinking about these a lot. Hey, speaking of books, hand me that book real quick. We weren't going to talk about this, but we will. We have a handwritten note. Greg and Jennifer, thanks again for your support for our comic books. May God continue to bless you, your family, and work with his peace and guidance. Lewis Hall, this is his second book. His first one came out years ago, just called Angelic Twaddle Comics. This one is volume 2. It was just released. You can find more about this at angelictwaddle.com. Basically, here, I'll read to you one of the book jacket quotes that was given about this book that describes it. This one comes from Greg and Jennifer Willits, founders of RosaryArmy.com and SchoolofMary.com. Greg and Jennifer said, Angelic Twaddle Comics is like Gary Larson's The Far Side meets the Catechism, providing surprisingly deep and faithful catechesis in quirky and easily digestible nuggets. Basically, what Lewis has done is he's made a bunch of Far Side-like comics, and then he explains the faith a little bit about the tenets of these. So it's a lot of angels interacting with humans and that kind of thing, and then explaining.
And then questions to ponder about the commentary within the comic. Like, what are you seeing here? What is the bigger truth about this image that he drew? and the statement that he's making about it. So, and obviously they all deal with angels and kind of through that's the narrative device that he's using in the comics, is just what the angels are going through and dealing with the humans that they're assigned to. So it's very creative. I'm looking forward to getting through volume 2.
So Lewis had sent us the first volume of this probably 10, 15 years ago. I don't even remember when he did the first one, and we had it on our bookshelf all that time. And then he reached out a few months ago and said he had this new version and sent me the PDF, and I looked at it. I'm like, I love these kinds of things. I'm a sucker for comics, and I'm a sucker for catechesis, and he did
You're
both.
a sucker for Catholicism.
I'm just a sucker. I'm a sucker for angelic comics, or angelic twaddle comics. Bling. So go check it out, angelictwaddle.com. We'll put the links in the show notes and that kind of thing. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hey, make sure you pray your rosary today.
And do whatever it takes to be holy.
Feedback at gregandjennifer.com if you want to reach out to us. rosaryarmy.com/donate if you want to support our ministry. Talk to you again in a few days, folks. God bless.
Bye.